Good evening, Eugene. How are you?
I'm great, Jana. How are you?
Very good. Well, we're here tonight for news of the week, week 25. So it's hard to keep track of what's happening in the news and see it all in one place, but also a lot of the news doesn't actually hit the Irish mainstream. So we're putting together this weekly wrap up. For anyone that missed last week's wrap up, it covered the ILGA pledge that our politicians signed up for, the surrogacy bill, the cast report, WPATH files, and education. So I'll turn it over to you, Eugene, to cover some news highlights that we can chat about.
Yeah, the thanks, Jana. So the first one I think we need to talk about, which is in the news, I guess, certain aspects are certainly being covered in the news. It's the EU Migration Pact. Now, what's been covered in the mainstream might be fully covering everything. There was some drama in the Dáil last night. That was on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So we're recording this on Thursday, and they actually adjourned the session and they're going to reconvene next week. So the vote was actually due to take place this week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of interesting. Now we can see actually what happened. That there has been a High Court case that's been taken, and this is great. Una McGurk, which people
Mm-hmm.
who may be familiar with her, you'll see her online. She's got videos online. She's one of the people really advocating that we need a referendum for this, that the sort of changes and impact this will have on the Irish society is warrants a referendum and we'll talk about this now in a minute because literally there was a video we just saw today which talked about some of the criteria associated with the number of migrants Ireland would have to take if they did sign up to this,
Mm-hmm.
and that number would be based on two things. One is the population density of the country, and also the GDP.
Mm-hmm.
So let's actually take a look at some data here. So I've gone on to Eurostat. So it's official data. So this is not my data. This is Eurostat data. Put the links in the description. There's two sets of data we want to look at. One is the population density, and you'll see that Ireland is down there in the kind of 35 to 80
Mm-hmm.
category. I think if you look at you can click on this map online, actually, you can interact with it, and it shows us, I think, around 75. And you can see there that we're one of the lowest in Europe. Only the Nordics and some of the Baltic countries have a lower density, and
Mm-hmm.
Iceland, of course. Whereas, France and Germany, you can see there, Netherlands,
Yeah.
etc. So that's bad news for us because basically people would say, well, there's plenty of room in Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And the second factor, which if we look at is the GDP per capita, we're one of the highest.
Right. So we have
So,
apparently we have lots of space and lots of money
yeah, we're
to
also
bring in more people.
yeah, yeah. So this is really concerning. And so we put a couple of links as well. They'll be in the description from a number of the notable politicians. Michael McDowell, of course, his words of wisdom. And, he's basically saying this is a bit of a blank check.
The
Yeah.
Natural Women's Council sent an email to every TD, senator, and minister showing that stating that we oppose the EU Migration Pact. We sent a very detailed letter, which was the template that was supplied to us and the public by Lawyers for Justice Ireland. So it's not too late for everyone to just copy that letter, paste it in an email, and send it to all of your TD senators and ministers, because the more pushback they get, they can see that the public do not support this EU Migration Pact. And the reason why the Natural Women's Council take a very strong stand against these open borders is the stats are not, you can't deny the stats. There is a direct link to crime and mass immigration, learning from countries like Germany and Sweden, particularly the rape crime. And that is certainly not something that we want to bring on to the island of Ireland. So it's a big concern, these open borders, for women's safety and our children and families. I'm organizing and hosting weekly meetings. A few of us women, there's 3 women on a kind of an admin group that we got 40,000 flyers printed up to let the community know what's happening. We're doing weekly meetings. We had a meeting on a bank holiday Monday in Ashburn where over 200 people came. We did Ratoath last week with over 100. Very, very good person with the pen, Judith, along with Lawyers for Justice Ireland, helped us do a very detailed letter, which we sent to every Meath and Fingal County councillor and TD, also to Minister McEntee and O'Gorman. And I'll just touch on a few points of the letter, but it's really important to know that this letter that we sent to our public reps can be customized and used for any area that has an IPAS center. So it basically talks about the legal obligations. Point number one is legal obligations prior to designating an accommodation center. It talks about there's no risk assessment done at all. So they're breaking the law in designating this as an IPAS center without a risk assessment. Point two is eligibility of international protection applicants to receive accommodation. Point three is the planning permission issue. Point four, resources. So it's a 4-point letter, very detailed. It's about 4 pages long. It can be found on our website that we built, which is no-to-thorntonhall.com. We also have a Telegram group, Thornton Says No, and also a Facebook group. So if you go to the website, no-to-thorntonhall.com, all the other channels are there. But that letter's on there. Anybody can use the letter and just simply tweak it for your own area that may be getting one of these IPAS centers, because there's hundreds of them all over the country. And Una McGurk pointed this out at her speech in Newtown Mount Kennedy, that the way they're putting these IPAS centers in is breaking the law. These are not legal the way they're doing it. So hopefully that angle, combined with the wonderful work that Una and Lawyers for Justice are doing, and then Una's case, let's all send her lots of love, light, and prayers on that case, because that could stop it in its tracks.
It's on the World Economic Forum. It's on their website. It's one of their pages. And it talks about reinventing the food system in a way that I probably wouldn't have seen it kind of covered like this before. So a lot of people would say, well, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around the food system, and people, wanting to change agriculture and getting rid of cattle and everything like that. Well, I think if you read this article, it kind of outlines that, and it talks about bioidentical plant or animal proteins, etc., cow-free dairy, and alternative proteins
laboratory
in general.
food, really. It's making food in a lab. And the ingredient for food, we always say the ingredient for food should be food. It shouldn't be laboratory produced food.
And the people that they quote, people like Nestle and Unilever. Now, Unilever, I think, would be more familiar with washing up powder and stuff like that. But these are not people who are into whole foods, historically. So they talk about renovation, which is reducing things like salt and sugar and stuff like that. And I don't think any of us are going to have any issues maybe with the stage 1 on renovation. It's the reinvention phase, which is essentially the phasing out of cattle and meat and, animal-based protein, replacing it with, whey protein and other sources. And I guess that's where the concerns start to lie, because I think anybody who knows nutrition knows that the more natural and whole the food, from an organic source, ideally, that's the most nutritional food you can get. And from an Irish perspective, what does this mean for our farmers?
It doesn't take rocket science to know that if you feed a child good, wholesome, natural food, they're going to sleep better, they're going to focus better, they're going to be able to sit in school and learn better. So all this processed muck, if they start pumping this into kids. And I did a recent podcast on the school lunches, whereby someone who works in one of the processing plants that produces these little boxed industrial lunches brought me 5 samples, and I got to look at them and smell them and poke at them and look at the ingredients. And let's just say that it wouldn't be food that I would feed my children. And my children are the only child in their entire class not getting this government provided food. But until we find out more about the ingredients, I have big concerns with it. There was an article in the mainstream that said, it was written by, I think, a lady, Ruth Hegarty, that some of the chicken was being flown in from China and the meats from Thailand. So if we're all about the green initiative, why are we giving kids Chinese chicken? That's not green, flying that in on the plane.
A book called The Busybodies book, which we've probably covered on another video when we talked about some of the supporting curriculum material. So we've had our concerns about that book, obviously, before, and we'll talk in a minute about its applicability or not applicability in Catholic schools. However, there are a number of videos which we didn't talk about when we did our original session on this. When we covered the book, we only covered the book, we didn't cover the videos. It's probably one of the videos that's a little bit off, I would say, or a bit concerning, just a bit overly graphic. We'll give you the link to the playlist, and it's video number 5, how are babies made. Could be used in a school as a supporting item to the book in a kind of an RSE type class in primary school. And it would be late primary school, obviously, with busybodies is for the kind of 9, 10, 11 type age group. So from a Catholic school perspective, we did get clarification this week that busybodies is not approved for use in Catholic schools. And there's a set of material, which again, I only became aware of this week myself. So this is new to me, this Flourish resource, and there's a website for it. And it's on the Catholic Primary Schools Management Association website. And these are the approved resources. So this is what any Catholic school should be using. It shouldn't be using the Busybodies book and the Busybodies video or videos. So if you weren't aware of that, here it is. And if your children are in a Catholic primary school and they're using the Busybodies stuff, well, then you need to engage with the Board of Management, get them to clarify with the Catholic Primary Schools Management Association, and they need to be adopting the Flourish material. So link in the description again, and just a kind of a note again, this was news to us this week. We didn't know this before. So it's worth checking out.
That's a really good call to action, that anybody listening who has a child in a primary school, a Catholic primary school, like my two children, to send to the Board of Management this link and advising them that the Busybodies booklet is not approved for primary Catholic schools. So I'll be sending that email this week as well. Yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, that was a quick one. Next one is, again, kind of breaking news. I guess this just came in today. This is covered on the BBC. I don't think it'll be covered in our own main media. It talks about the guidance for transgender guidance in Northern Ireland. And this is, I suppose, following on from what we saw in the UK. We covered it in our last video, where they kind of did a U-turn in the UK, and it's kind of bringing that into the Northern Ireland schools as well. So it's good to see this. Brilliant. So again, we'll have the link in the description. You can check that out. And then the last one we have here, again, it's stuff that came out this week. It's a study from Germany, Desistance data. And again, I guess some of the studies that people quote on Desistance are maybe a few years old. So this is a new one. It uses a 5-year horizon. So it looks at the amount of desistance, the percentage of children trans-identifying or gender non-conforming children after 5 years. And it shows us there that in total, it's 63.6% within a 5-year window will have desisted. And I guess if you look at the kind of the guidance in schools, which is kind of, the affirmative approach, just think about it. If that 63.6% of kids had actually been affirmed and had been medicalized within that 5 years, that's kind of a concern, I guess, right?
That's a real concern that 6 out of 10 children could have been given irreversible puberty blockers, hormones, surgeries, chest binders when they naturally would grow out of it as they go through puberty and grow up. Wow. Yeah,
so that's a real concern. So data's there. Again, it's a paper. It's an academic paper, actually. So this is serious stuff. We'll have a link to, there's an article and there's also a paper. The article probably is easier to read, but the academic paper with the data is also there, and that's in the description. So this is very real. It's good to see this data coming through from Germany.
Great.
So the next one we're going to go through is our YouTube videos. So the first one, it's always amusing to listen to Michael O'Leary. So and he's talking about a few things on this. We'll put the link to this News Talk interview he did with Pat Kenny during the week. Some of you may have heard it already. And he talks about a few things. And one of the things he talks about is, the migrants, flushing their paperwork down the toilet. He talks about that Ryanair are actually looking to take photographs of the paperwork before people get on the plane so that they can provide it to the authorities. Archbishop Schneider, who some people may be aware of and people may not be aware of, he's an extremely good bishop from the Catholic perspective, and quite outspoken, and he talks, he does a lot of interviews, etc. So you'll see a lot of material from him. We'll play a quick snip from this particular video. The video is only just under 7 minutes. We'll just play, about 40, 50 seconds of it, because he makes some really key points. And so let's just listen to this now, and then we'll talk afterwards.
And we have the same scenario in our day in almost all Western Europe countries and Latin America countries, that from the kindergarten, they are already pushing the gender ideology very clearly. And so you see, these are for me, we have a new, I call this neo-marxist, neo-communist gender ideology dictatorship in the Western countries. We must protest against these. We must unmask these as dictatorial, as totalitarian, and to unite all the people of good will and common sense to make alliance, even political, against the new dictatorship, neo-Marxist gender ideology dictatorship in the Western countries, to save human being, to save family.
He came from a communist background. That's where he grew up. So he's very aware of the kind of environment where speech is restricted, etc. And I think he was pretty clear. So have a listen to the full video while we're listening to. We're also going to put in a link to a second video to an interview he did about 7 years ago. That's about 50 minutes long. So if you have a bit more time, you can listen to that. And he does answer some really interesting questions in that particular video, including regarding the kind of migration, Islamic migration into Europe that's been ongoing, for the last, 20, 30 years, I would say. So he does have some insights into that as well. So take a listen to that as well. Will be in the description.
I was at a Free Speech Ireland event this week, which was a fantastic event with a great lineup in Trinity College. And it was, Antifa tried to shut it down because obviously people promoting free speech are fascist, go figure. But it was really interesting because the hate speech, Professor Casey was on the lineup. He always has great wise words. The thing about hate speech is it's not really to stop hate, because we are not a hateful people. It's to have people self-censor. It's all about censorship. So it will only allow people to hear and see news that the government want us to hear and see, and it will self-censor anybody like us who may be challenging the narrative. It wants people to self-censor. So the process is really the crime. You may not really go to jail for having a meme on your phone, but they want people fearful and self-censoring. So it's not really about stopping hate. It's about stopping speech and thought.
It's a video testimony by Dr. Levitino, who's former employee of Planned Parenthood, who had undergone or had performed basically 1,200 abortions in his career. And he's doing this testimony. The video is only 6 minutes long, but he covers a lot of ground in it. Now, viewer discretion is advised, because he basically explains the procedure for a second trimester abortion. And it's pretty harrowing. So just be warned. It is very informative. It's probably important for people who are not familiar with abortion procedures to listen to this. And it certainly is. It is a bit shocking. So there is a kind of a warning on that particular video. We're not going to show any of it here, and we're not going to talk about it in any more detail than watching the video. It is obviously in a hearing setting, so he's under oath. And this man is a man, obviously he had performed 1,200 abortions previously, but he did get to a change of heart, and he talks about his story. Next one we have is again an older video. It goes back to 2021, a guy called Walt Heyer, and he had identified as a woman for about 8 years. He had gone through various procedures, etc. And he talks about his experience and how he had been abused as a child. His grandmother used to put him into a dress and all this kind of thing, and say, "You look like a lovely girl," and all this. So he this was the backdrop to him identifying as a woman. So it's very informative. It's a very short video. It's only 10 minutes long, but again, well worth a listen, because this is somebody who's been through the ringer, so to speak, through the experience himself and his reflection on that experience. So again, well worth a watch. The websites for this week, two websites, very similar websites, I guess. GenSpect is one. They're a great organization who take a very kind of, I guess, try to take a very neutral standpoint from in terms of gender dysphoria and children being gender non-conforming, etc. A lot of very good resources on this website. They track the news and the latest research, a lot of good articles. So GenSpect, definitely check them out. They've also got lots of YouTube videos as well.
It's a
So
great
well worth
resource,
a look.
Eugene. I've looked through different sections, like as if, a parent
Yeah.
might need resources if their
Yeah.
child, due to this social contagion or maybe due to other issues, is suffering gender dysphoria. It has some good resources to support parents on what to do in that situation.
The next one is, I think it's a US-based site. It's the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine. And these are more focused on the kind of the research papers, the medical articles. They would have you can look up on, and you can see the kind of things on the left-hand side there. They've categorized all of the kind of medical references into different sections. And these are, medical papers, journals, published data. This is the real good stuff that you may need and may help you in terms of either just informing yourself, or perhaps you might need them in another context.
Mm-hmm.
And last one we have is the book of the week. And this book I think is well worth. I've got this myself on Audible from Amazon. It's Awake, Not Woke by Noel Merring. And it's a Christian response to the cult of progressive ideology. So it talks about woke ideology. It goes through the history of it. And I think Noel Merring's very good, actually. This book is very good and very insightful. And she goes right back to the Frankfurt School and how things evolved from there and to what we have today, how it's manifest in our society today. Well worth a read or a listen if you get the audiobook, and kind of as your stepping stone of understanding this perhaps a bit more what's actually going on. So highly recommend it.
Thanks everyone for watching, and thanks to anyone who sent us any stories that you want to hear more about. Links to all of the articles and the material are in the video description. What we would ask is we want to make sure that we are seen and that we can go up through the YouTube algorithm. So it's really important to like the video and just give a quick comment, give us any feedback, and then share it out so then it can get seen by more people. A lot of work goes into the content. We just need to make sure that we're getting the views to get the awareness out. So if you want any stories for us to cover, just email us at info@naturalwomanscouncil.ie and we can include them in next week's wrap up. So that's great. Excellent. Well, have a great night, everyone. And thanks for watching the news of the week.